February 3rd is coming, the end of the week, and that is the day that Austin and I moved into a safe house. Friday, February 3rd, 2006. So Austin will be needing an escort of somebody to take him. As we all know, the government people who are abusing my child have access to the safe house. They even visited us when we were there and fully documented the fact that we were fleeing abuse from Alice Sellers, Frank Sellers, and Tina Sellers. And my ex, my son's sperm donor, Helmut Hensberger, who was sending me threatening emails about our possible return to live with him in Austria. And so that was the day that Austin and I were supposed to get on a plane back to Austria. But because of those threatening emails, I made the hard, life-changing decision to not flee the abuse from Alice by moving to Austria with another abusive person, and to take the scary step to be independent, stop living in this abusive cycle, and to move into a safe house with my child, who was only a few months old at the time. So, I guess I got sidetracked. Austin, as I was saying, needs to be taken to that safe house on February 3rd and shown his history. And like I said, the social workers who are abusing my child currently have access to this place. So they very well have no reason why they cannot take him there and show him his history and explain to him why it's an important day for our lives and how it changed our lives, even though they have not respected our new life changes and the fact that we moved away to be free from living in fear. Instead, they sucked us back in and have completely destroyed our lives to the point where, like I've said before, my child is being held hostage in the abuse that we fled from, that I spent a lifetime trying to escape from. And now my son has not been seen or heard from by any family members or myself for 3.5 years. Yet everybody wants to keep pretending he's doing well. If he's doing so well, why is he not allowed to see or speak to anybody he's ever known in his entire life? Well, because the truth is that Alice Sellers, the Wicked Witch of West Vancouver, wants my child kept in abuse and in this cult environment where she can control his thoughts and his beliefs and his brainwashing, so that he has no idea of the truth of the abuse that he's experiencing. I mean, he knows some of it because obviously he knows he's living in fear of Alice and the fact that she can become violent at any moment, and same with Frank and same with Tina. So of course he witnesses that domestic violence and is learning how to be a battered husband, because that's what the environment he's living in is teaching him is normal. As Alice says all the time, that all men are evil and should all be lined up and shot and castrated. And Frank does nothing to defend himself. He just hides in his bedroom all day, trying to remain out of the line of fire. And nobody taught me as a child that there were places to go to get away from this abuse. So me, especially having the same learning disabilities that Austin does, was always beat up for being stupid, called retarded, yelled and screamed at for the fact that I would have hours of homework while Tina would have none. And, you know, I was never encouraged or given any patience or understanding or anything. I was just constantly beat up for having learning disabilities. And now my child, who has learning disabilities, is living in that same environment and being criticized and abused the same way that I was, and even worse, because he's also being told that his mom and friends and family are all evil and have abandoned him and do not love him. And he's, you know, obviously being taught the same things that I was taught, that if you don't keep your fat mouth shut, you'll end up in a worse place because a foster home will be much worse off for you. And if you try and say anything little to anybody, it gets back to Alice and then you get beat up for it. So you learn to keep your mouth shut because it's worse off for you when you try and say anything. Because people don't ever want to believe that some wealthy, rich white woman in West Vancouver can be abusive. And so, you know, that's the brainwashing I lived in, was always being taught that I'm a liar and I'm causing trouble whenever I speak to somebody about the truth of the abuse. And I'm just, you know, constantly being told how I'm a pathological liar. And nobody's ever going to believe me. And all I ever do is cause trouble. And I should just learn to be a good child like everybody else. And why can't Alice be blessed with good children, you know, who just keep their mouth shut and get good grades and do what they're told? But, you know, there's that instinct in you when you're an abused child to somehow try and get help and try and get out. And when you're too afraid to tell somebody the whole story to make it horrific enough to actually get that help, and you're only leaking little bits and pieces, then that's why, I don't know, I guess it's still not fair to blame myself for not telling anybody enough information, but that's what people would do. Instead of getting me help to get me out of there and believing what I was saying, they would just report back to Alice and make it all worse. And she keeps pounding that into you, how nobody's ever going to believe you. It's just the same as all those cult shows you watch on TV where they abuse you and make you think that you're the one doing something wrong. And you get punished into learning that you need to just obey and keep your mouth shut, because when you don't, things are worse for you. And now that's what my son is living in. It doesn't matter how many police reports or 911 calls or stalking reports or any evidence that we have against Alice. This wicked witch of West Vancouver keeps buying her way out of her consequences. And so now she has another victim in Austin being abused and being taught that he's a loser and he's no good and nobody's ever going to believe him and he needs to keep his mouth shut, do what he's told, or she's going to keep ripping his hair out and beating him up and calling him names and telling him how stupid he is and how he's a liar. And I'm sure she was also telling him that when she considers him to be bad and that he's done something wrong, that, oh, that's why his mom doesn't love him. And that's why he hasn't seen me or any of his friends or family. Because those are the kinds of things she says. She makes you think that nobody loves you and nobody's ever going to help you. And now these are the things that Austin is being taught.